Well, it's football time finally. I just got off the Rocky Top Smoky Mountain. I was getting my game face on, and we're going to try to preview some divisions for you so you have some things to look at as we head towards training camp. We're going to start with the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, and the New Orleans Saints. And I remember going to training camp every year wondering, what's the best way to get to the playoffs? The best way to get to the playoffs is you win the division. You guarantee yourself a spot. And you get a home playoff game if you win the division. So one of these four teams secures a home playoff game if they can win the division. But every year there's a lot of changes. We have changes on the coaching staff, not just the head coach, but it could be a defensive coordinator, could be an offensive coordinator, which brings scheme changes. We get rid of some players. We add some players in the draft. We add some players in the free agent market. The roster changes. And most importantly, the schedule changes. Hell, you got to play in cold weather, you got to play in hot weather, you got to play overseas. And this year, the NFC South will play teams that come from the AFC East. You're going to see the Buffalo Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Patriots invading the NFC South space. They also got to play the NFC West. That's the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Rams. I think you guys know. Who else is in that division, Jake?
Cardinals.
The Cardinals. Don't forget Arizona. But those four teams invade the South space, so the schedule's different. It's really important to look for second-year players, all you fantasy football players. Those are the guys that show the most improvement, so expect some young guys to emerge. You're also going to see the return of some injured players. How healthy are they? How well do they play? But there's a lot of things to consider other than just common sense thoughts. Knock on wood if you're with me, or a grease board. Let's get into the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won it last year with a 10-7 record. They were followed by Atlanta, who went 8-9. The Carolina Panthers and the Saints, they brought up the rear. They both went 5-12. Take a look at how they fared in the division. Tampa was 4-2 in the division. So was Atlanta. And don't forget, Atlanta swept Tampa. Twice they beat them, Jake. And Kirk Cousins ripped the Buccaneers in both games. Carolina was 2-4. So were the Saints. So that's how they wound up last season. But this is this season. Keep in mind, head coach Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a defensive coach. Raheem Morris, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, came up as a defensive coach. And in Carolina, they have head coach Dave Canales. He's an offensive coach that will call the plays. And the New Orleans Saints just signed Kellen Moore to be their head coach. He's an offensive guy, and he's going to call the plays as well. So you see the mixture we have in the South. The Buccaneers have won 4 straight division titles in the NFC South. 4 straight. Think about that. That's incredible. The last 3 seasons, they did it by going 10-7, 9-8, and 8-9. So this is a very winnable division. Remember, Tampa Bay won the NFC South in Week 18 last year by beating the Saints 27-19. Remember, Atlanta got knocked out at home. The Carolina Panthers came to town. The Buccaneers have a new offensive coordinator, however. His name is Josh Grizzard. He was the pass game coordinator for Tampa last year. Let's see how that impacts their offense. The Atlanta Falcons, they have not won the division since 2016. That's the year they went to the Super Bowl and blew a 25-point lead to the Patriots. Talk about a Super Bowl hangover. Wow, that was a real hangover. But anyways, they brought in a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, from the New York Jets. He was the interim head coach last year. He'll bring the Falcons some juice and perhaps calm their scheme down. Carolina's had no changes on their coaching staff, notable changes. They haven't won the division since 2015 when they lost to the Denver Broncos. Talk about a Super Bowl hangover. I guess there's some legitimacy to that. Anyways, the Saints at 5-12, they haven't won the division since 2020 when Drew Brees was in his final year. You think quarterbacks matter or what? Yes, they do. You think they matter, Clay?
Yeah, they do.
Do they, Clay?
Yes.
Show some enthusiasm, Clay. Hell yes, they matter. They got a new offensive coordinator, Doug Nussmeier, and they got Brandon Staley as their new defensive coordinator. That's right, Brandon Staley, who used to be the head coach of the Chargers. And if you like DraftKings like I do, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are even money to win a division. The Falcons are 2.5 to 1 the last time I checked. And the Carolina Panthers, they're getting better quietly. They're 4 to 1. And the Saints, well, they've got some changes at key positions. They're 10 to 1. But real quick, the quarterback position in the NFC South, just think about it. We talked about how important Drew Brees was, didn't we, Clay?
We did.
Baker Mayfield has done an incredible job reinventing his career in Tampa. In 2 years, he's won 2 division titles. He's thrown for 8,500 plus yards, Jake. That's second in the NFL. And who's thrown more touchdowns than Baker Mayfield in his first 2 seasons, Jake? Who? Nobody. So they got Mayfield 103 career starts, 69 touchdowns in the last 2 years, and they got firepower, man. They drafted another wideout with their first-round pick out of Ohio State, and you better watch out. They can run the ball with Bucky Irvin and Rachaad White. Now, Bryce Young, he has 31 starts, just 29 career touchdown passes. But remember when he got benched last year, Clay?
Yes.
He came back a different man. He played really good football down the stretch. He knocked Arizona out of the playoffs, and then, boom, he knocked the Falcons out. Bryce Young is interesting. And they've added some weapons. Didn't they take a first-round pick with the wide receiver? Yes, they did. And where's my friend Hunter Renfrow at, Jake? Carolina. So I look for him to continue to improve in Dave Canales' system. Usually, in your second year, you show great improvement. The Atlanta Falcons are interesting. This is a balanced offense, and they gave the keys to Mike Penix. Remember all the drama when Cousins signed, and then they drafted Penix? Oh, God, I heard the same story for about 20 hours a day, 6 straight weeks. Well, it's Penix at quarterback now. He's 1-2 in just 3 career starts. Both of his losses were in overtime. The kid played well. He has a cannon, and they got a lot of talent in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is on the bench, but he's still in this division, and he might be a factor before it's all said and done. 159 starts, 284 touchdown passes. But in the South, it's Mayfield on top. I think he's proven he's a hell of a quarterback. We have no idea what's going to happen in New Orleans. None. It's like walking down Bourbon Street. You don't know what the hell you're going to see. It could be the rookie, Tyler Shuck, rookie out of Louisville. We had him in here. He's impressive. And I like Spencer Rattler, but he has just 6 career starts. He's 0-6 with 4 career touchdowns. And our guy Jake Haener, who's still a young, talented kid out of Fresno, we don't know what's going to happen. But it's like Bourbon Street right now. There's a lot of things that could happen, man. You got to keep your eye on that position in New Orleans. But clearly, Mayfield is the number 1 QB. Todd Bowles is the most experienced, qualified coach. There's no question. And now when I look at the pass rush, think about this. Stay with me. I know I'm getting wordy here. The pass rush in the NFC South. Clearly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the last 2 years have been the best. They have 94 sacks, 7th in the NFL. Atlanta and New Orleans, they have 73 sacks. They're tied for 28th. That's not good. And Carolina, they are dead last. 32nd in the league with 59 sacks. That pisses me off. When I coached against Carolina, they had fucking Julius Peppers over there. Couldn't block that sumbitch. Anyways, Carolina dead last. That's another reason why Tampa Bay has won 4 straight divisions. And lastly, I look at the kicking situation. Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he is a freaking assassin. He is a Terminator, man. 54 out of 56 on PATs, 30 out of 32 on field goals. Young kicker in New Orleans, pretty good player, Groupie. He was 31 out of 33 on extra points, 27 out of 31 on field goals. He's getting better. And Koo, the kicker of the Falcons, as good as he has been, He was struggling last year and he got hurt. 35th in the league in accuracy. And I don't know what the hell's going on in Carolina. They got rid of their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, who kicked pretty good. They got some guy named Wright who's on his 6th team. I don't like to hear that stuff. So if you look at the kicker, the quarterback, the pass rush, and then you consider the secondaries, a lot of these DBs, man, they got tough matchups against Mike Evans and Godwin, all these big receivers in Carolina. Remember this stat. Carolina gave up 35 touchdown passes last year. That's the most in the NFL. And Atlanta gave up 34. That's the second most. New Orleans and Tampa, 27 and 19, right behind that. So I think Tampa Bay is primed to win the South and really be a team to watch moving forward. We're going to get into these 4 teams and study them carefully on both sides of the ball. You want to join me? I hope you do. Okay, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons, some key things that are going on as we get this training camp started. Head coach Raheem Morris used to work with me in Tampa. I love this guy. Upbeat, high energy, defensive background. The team finished 8-9 last year, but remember, they started off 6-3. Everybody was excited, but then they lost 4 straight. They fell apart down the stretch. The Cousins-Penix drama was kind of the storyline in Atlanta last year, and it really drove me freaking nuts. Of course, it's a short trip to drive me nuts, but Jiminy Christmas. We got Kirk Cousins! Why did we draft Penix? We benched Cousins? Penix is in? It gives me a stomach ache thinking about it. How would you like to be on that team going through that shit? It would drive me out of my tree. Penix is the guy now. I think we know that. Zach Robinson will be in his 2nd year this year as the offensive coordinator. I remember being a young coordinator. My 2nd year, it sure was easier than the first. I got a feeling Zach Robinson is going to be a much better coordinator even this year. They got a new defensive coordinator, and you should make a big, big, big deal of that. Jeff Ulbrich coming over from the Jets. He was with the Falcons at one time as a linebacker coach and a coordinator. He's a very good defensive coordinator. He's got to fix the defense. They were bad last year. Statistically, the effort wasn't good. It didn't look like a Falcon defense led by Raheem Morris. They went out. They didn't have a lot of money to spend. They're kind of like me going shopping. You know, you're down there in fancy stores and you have no money. You just shop. Well, the Falcons didn't have a lot of money, but I thought they got some great players, really good, solid players in free agency. Morgan Fox and Leonard Floyd will supplement the front. Morgan Fox was a good Charger. He was a good Ram. He could play inside and out. And we all know Leonard Floyd. He's got almost 50 sacks in his career in the last 5 years. This guy can get off the edge. And they signed Divine Diablo, one of my ex-draft choices with the Raiders, to a $14 million 2-year contract. Good young inside linebacker. And they got Jordan Fuller, a quality safety. Both Fuller and Fox were with Raheem Morris when he was the defensive coordinator of the Rams. So he knows they fit his scheme. Didn't spend a lot of money, but they were effective. And then they went out in the draft. And I'm sitting out there at Barstool, sitting out there with Brandon Walker and Stephen Che commenting. They get Jalen Walker in the first round. He's a linebacker out of Georgia. He can play everywhere on the field. I love that kid. And then they got James Pierce. They traded up to get a pass rusher out of Tennessee, probably the best pure pass rusher in the draft. And he ran 4.47. And then they got Xavier Watts, who had 13 interceptions at Notre Dame. And they got Billy Bowman, a dynamic playmaker at Oklahoma, another defensive back. 4 defensive draft picks, 4 quality free agents, all on Jeff Ulbricht's defense. That would excite me. It excites me a lot. And I get excited quite easily, but shit, that's exciting. They have missed the playoffs 7 straight years. And a part of that problem has been the lack of splash plays on defense. Last year, they're 31st in the league in sacks, 31st in the league in pressure, and opposing quarterbacks completed 70%, 34 touchdown passes, and they had 45% conversions on 3rd down. I mean, quarterbacks are standing back there feeling really nicey, woo, and just ripping Atlanta. That has got to change, and I think that's why you see a new coordinator and a lot of new players. They also struggled in the red zone, giving up touchdowns 65% of the time. That's 28th in football. We're going to find out early, Jake, about the Atlanta Falcons because 4 of their first 5 games are against playoff teams from last year. I mean, they got to play Minnesota, Buffalo, Washington, Tampa right out of the gate. You're going to find out. Everybody's in on Mike Penix, but I want you to keep an eye on Kirk Cousins. He's healthy now, I know that, because I know Cousins. If they keep him, they got a quality backup quarterback. But there are plenty of teams Kirk Cousins can play for. Will they trade him before the season starts? That could be something to watch. The offense has got to carry the load, 13th in scoring, 6th in total offense. They're balanced. But we got to keep an eye on the Falcons kicker, Koo. He really struggled last year, and they brought in some competition for him. They got to address that. He missed 3 field goals in a game they lost to the Saints. He missed another one in a loss against the Chargers. They got to have a better place kicker this year. Let's get into the Falcons offense. Okay, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons on offense. It's an exciting crowd, led by young quarterback Mike Penix and the do-it-all running back Bijan Robinson. I like that name, Bijan Robinson. He's even selling his own mustard now called Dijon Mustardson. I got to get some of that, put it on some of that lousy food you bring me, Malasek. Zach Robinson's the offensive coordinator. They have good players everywhere on offense. But I would keep an eye on the depth, especially during the preseason. How much are you going to see these starters play in these 3 preseason games? I don't think the Falcons have a lot of proven depth behind their frontline starters. This is one of the only teams in the NFL that has pure balance between running and passing. They're a top 10 offense, 6th in the league in yards, and they do a hell of a job now throwing the ball. They're a top 5 passing team, and they're a top 10 rushing team. Very few operations can say that. And they'll be better, as I said already, in the second year offensive coordinator Zach Robinson's offense. I think listening to everything that I have heard, I think Coach Robinson and his staff went back to the University of Washington and studied the Huskies where Mike Penix shredded people his last year in Seattle. And they're going to put some plays in and cater the playbook to what Penix likes. Remember last year, Kirk Cousins was the starter, and they were trying to put things in to feature what Cousins loved. And believe me, that's a huge challenge. A young left-handed quarterback, let's put some plays in that he feels really good about. Penix has great arm talent, and I don't throw that word around great very often. I mean, Malasek is a good field hockey player. He's a good hockey player, but he's not great. Mike Penix has a great arm, man. This guy can really rip it. He can stick it in tight windows. And I think a thing to look for this summer is let's see Mike Penix. Let's watch his voice. Let's listen for him becoming the true leader of this Atlanta Falcon football team. I think that's going to be a big part of training camp. I want to see a lot more play action passes. I want to see that ball extended to Bijan Robinson and pulled out of there and set up some chunk plays down the field. The Falcons were last in the NFL last year in calling play action passes. Only 7% of the time with Bijan Robinson, the 3rd leading rusher in the NFL. One of the reasons for that is the only blocking tight end they have is Charlie Werner. When they put in Pitts at tight end, he's just not proven to be a pass protector and a run blocker. And it's hard, man, to throw a play-action pass. I'm not talking about an RPO, all you statisticians. I'm talking about a hard action, play action. Hard to do that without a tight end that can block. So we got to keep an eye on that. What changes are coming, but don't underestimate how important a blocking tight end is and Charlie Werner's importance to this offense. Very important. Mike Penix was 1-2 last year as a starter. Both losses were in overtime. He is in the second year with Zach Robinson, and I expect him to improve because of that. Very important, too, to note, I think the distraction is over. I don't think Penix has any confusion who's getting the reps with the ones, when to rest, when to do this, when to do that. There's a clear line of communication. The offensive line for the Falcons, they have huge investments. On the left side is Jake Matthews. He's in his 13th season, first-round pick. On the right side is Caleb McGrary. He's a first-round pick. He's been in the league for 7 seasons. Chris Lindstrom, a Pro Bowl player, number 63 at right guard, is a first-round pick. If you're counting with me at home, that's 3 number 1s in your offensive line. Matthew Bergeron, Syracuse Orange Man, he's a second-round pick. And Ryan Newsel will be the new opening day starter. He took over at mid-season last year. He started 8 games, but all 5 linemen are back. They're solid. Statistically, they only gave up 32 sacks, which is good, but I think this group can play better, and I think they have to play better with a young quarterback. I thought there were a few too many careless penalties in key situations that killed Atlanta. Remember, left tackle Matthews, he had 6 penalties. Bergeron had 9 penalties. Newsel had 6 penalties. Lindstrom had 7. McGrary had 4, but most of those penalties, I think, were in key situations that really hurt Atlanta. And I don't know how much depth they have behind these 5 starters. Brandon Parker and Storm Norton, keep an eye on those tackles. They're the ones that are going to be playing during the preseason. And Jack Nelson was a 7th-round pick out of Wisconsin. We got to keep an eye on who's the 3rd tackle in case one of these tackles goes down. And they have a backup center issue. Remember, Newsel was the backup center last year. Who's the backup center this year? That's what I say. I'm an owl. Who is it? Is it going to be Gwynn? Is it going to be Gwynn, number 52? I don't know. But there are some depth issues, and I think this offensive line can and will play better this year. The running back position, I think we got to come up with a new name for these 2 backs. I love Bijan Robinson. His pass protection is incredible. He will knock your ass off. I love him. When he's chipping these speed rushers, he will be unmerciful to you, man. Be careful, man. This guy's a hell of a player without the ball. But with the ball, 304 carries, 1,456 yards, 14 touchdowns, and he caught 61 passes. So Robinson, 3rd in the league in rushing, 6th in the league in total yards, and he makes guys miss, Jake. 99 times he made a defender miss. That's 2nd in the NFL if you get into the hardcore stats. This guy's elusive, man. Very hard to tackle. And then they got Tyler Algier, 132 carries, 644 yards. He averaged 4.7 with 3 more touchdowns. These 2 backs can run the rock. And they're the only backfield duo that had over 600 yards and over 4.5 yards per carry, kind of like the Lions with Gibbs and Montgomery. What do they call those guys, Jake?
Sonic and Knuckles.
Sonic and Knuckles. I want to come up with a name for these 2 guys. I'm thinking the Atlanta Rhythm Section. You guys ever heard of those guys? Sure you have. Ever heard that song, So Into You? I am so into you, I can't think of nothing else. Or you could go with the Atlanta Rhythm Section, Champagne Jam. Gonna have to take a champagne jam. I don't know how that one goes, but think about the Atlanta Rhythm Section. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algiers, baby. You love it?
Love it.
The receivers, this is a very good group of receivers, and they're all different. They have Drake London, 100 catches last year, 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's 9th in the league, 100 catches. And that's 5th in the league with 9 touchdowns. Drake London is more of a possession receiver, though. He runs a lot of option routes, crossing routes. He loves to win in the middle of the field. And then they get Darnell Mooney, the ex-Chicago Bear, former Tulane Green Wave. He has 992 yards. He is their vertical stretch receiver. London is big and strong. Mooney is very fast. And they got Ray McLeod. He is extra quick. He is their featured jet sweep runner. Ray McLeod caught 62 passes, extremely quick, and he's from right here in Tampa, Florida at Sickles High School. I used to watch him play high school. They don't have a lot of depth behind these three receivers, so keep an eye on Hodge, number 4, and Casey Washington, number 82. Who's the 4th and 5th receiver for the Atlanta Falcons? But what are we going to do with Kyle Pitts? The former first-round tight end had a huge rookie year with Matt Ryan, 68 catches, 1,000 yards. But in the last 3 seasons, Pitts only has 128 catches combined, and he clearly has not been the go-to receiver on third down and in tight red zone situations. What are they going to do with him? My sources say they have fielded some trade proposals. Other teams would like to take Pitts off their hand. So far, the Falcons have said no. But remember, it's Charlie Werner that does all the blocking. Pitts is a receiver only on the film I'm looking at. He struggles in pass protection. But the Atlanta Falcons have a lot of balance. They can run it. They can throw it. They are the only team in the NFL with 4 receivers of 60 catches or more. London, Mooney, McLeod, and Bijan Robinson. Why is that? They're the only 4 guys that play. They don't have a lot of depth and not a lot of other players contribute. But keep an eye on the depth, a lot of young talent, a lot of excitement with this Falcon offense going into year 2 of Zach Robinson's system. Okay, the Atlanta Falcon defense. Got a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, comes over from the Jets. Remember, Ulbrich was with the Falcons for 2015 to 2020, so he has some history with the Falcons. They have some really interesting players. Caleb Ellis, linebacker, Jesse Bates at safety, 2 of my favorite NFL defensive players. But Jeff Ulbrich, he's got his hands full. They also brought in a new pass game coordinator. They brought in a new defensive line coach. They brought in a lot of new players. And they got rid of a lot of players that played in the league a long time. Grady Jarrett, great Atlanta Falcons in Chicago. Matthew Judon, the ex-New England Patriot Baltimore Raven, is gone. Justin Simmons, safety man, gone. Lorenzo Carter, Eddie Goldman, Richie Grant, Antonio Hamilton. These guys played a lot of snaps for the Falcons last year. They're all gone. So there's a lot of new players in a new scheme with a new defensive coordinator in Atlanta. We got to keep an eye on that. I think the big thing Jeff Ulbrich is going to do, from what I have heard, he's going to simplify things a little bit. You know, let's have some rules where we can apply these rules against some of these modern offenses that are weird, man. I mean, what are we going to do when they come out in a wildcat? What are we going to do when they come out with a no-back set? What are we going to do against all these RPOs? What are we going to do against this no-huddle quad formation? We got rules, and we have a simplified defensive approach that might help some of these young players take off and communicate better. But there are a lot of changes on personnel. They better pick up the effort. I didn't like the effort in some of the games I saw last year. That has to improve, and it will improve under Raheem Morris. And I think they got to get their confidence back. They got their asses kicked in that final game at home. I mean, Bryce Young in Carolina came in and put over 40 points on them in a must-win game. So they got to get some things addressed. And it all starts, to me, with attacking the pocket. And the pocket is where the quarterback sets up. I mean, that quarterback is standing back here and he has time to go through his reads. It's over. So they made multiple changes on defense. The defensive tackle position in Atlanta, they brought in some players, but they still have David Onyemata, the ex-New Orleans Saint, number 90. He's solid. Keep an eye on this second-year player. I love to say his name. I'm going to try to say it right for you, because I know I got plenty of people that criticize my pronunciations, which they should. But here's a guy named Rook O-Ro-Ro-Ro. Ook Ro-Ro-Ro. I love this guy, man. He's a second-round draft choice 2 years ago, and he's got some juice. Contavious Street, 93. Taquan Graham, 95. They got multiple guys they can send at you from the inside, and I like that. And on the outside, edge rushers. Judon no longer here. Who's it going to be? Well, Let's trade up in the first round and let's get James Pierce out of Tennessee. He had 10 sacks, led the SEC 2 years ago. Last year he had 7.5. The guy can run 4.47, so he can get the corner with the speed. They also brought in Leonard Floyd, who had 48 sacks in his last 5 years. He had a lot of sacks in Chicago, Buffalo, San Francisco. So he and Pierce coming from the outside with these cats coming up the inside, it's got to be better. And they brought in Morgan Fox, Jake, from the LA Chargers. What's your favorite team, Jake?
Chargers.
Well, hell with you, Jake. They brought in Fox. He can play inside or outside. I like his effort. And they also have this kid, Braylon Trice. I think he's wearing number 48. He was a third-round pick 2 years ago. Didn't get to play because he got hurt. So throw him in the mix. And the number one edge rusher, in spite of all the guys I just brought up, Arnold Ebiketie. I got to say that name with you. Ebiketie. Say it with me at home. Ebiketie. I love this guy. Arnold Ebiketie. He led the Falcons with 6 sacks. So when you get Ebiketie, Pierce, Floyd, Fox, you got a lot of guys that can come off the edge. And this fourth quarter pass rush, everybody talks about the 2-minute drill, how Drew Brees and Josh Allen and all these great quarterbacks come down in the 2-minute drill. What about the fourth quarter pass rush? How do you think we won a Super Bowl? Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp. I mean, those guys, they would end your day. And that's what the Falcons need. Somebody inside, somebody outside. End the game and send the Falcons home as winners. That'll be interesting to watch. But the most improved position in Atlanta is their linebacking core. And I've said it already. I love number 55, Caden Ellis. Right up there. He came out of nowhere last year, over 150 tackles and 5 sacks. As an off-the-ball linebacker, nobody has had more pressures and sacks than that guy. He's a hell of a football player. Caden Ellis. Say it with me. Say it with me.
Caden Ellis.
Jesus, you guys. Say it with me. Caden what?
Ellis.
There you go. Get excited about the guy. Jesus. Then they got Jalen Walker in the first round. They got this kid out of Georgia, number 11, 6.5 sacks. Who cares about the sacks? The guy played inside linebacker, outside linebackers. He plays in the slot. Some bitch plays everywhere. I mean, this Jalen Walker's a great kid. He's got captain-like qualities. He is going to be a freak for the Falcons. You watch. Rookie of the Year candidate, and I think he's from right down the street. He's going to have a lot of his friends there rooting him on. Walker and Ellis. And then they go out to the Raiders, and they get my guy, Divine Diablo. I mean, this guy started 42 games for the Raiders, made 288 tackles. He's about 6'3". Great length and athleticism. He might even wear the green dot. 3 good linebackers. And then you talk about Troy Anderson, number 44. He got hurt last year. Second-year guy out of Montana State. He was a Gruden grinder. That's how much I liked him on one of the tapes. I'm like, you got Anderson, you got Caden Ellis, Divine Diablo, and Jalen Walker. That's a lot better crowd, and so is their pass rush. And finally, it's going to come down to the secondary. We already talked about Jesse Bates, outstanding safety in this league. I call him the Bates Hotel. You can check in, but you can't check out, man. This guy will knock your ass off in the box. He's the only guy in the league with over 100 tackles, 4 picks, 4 forced fumbles. What's his name? Jesse what?
Bates.
You can check in, but you can't check out. I love Jesse Bates, and he's a fiery-ass leader. Now, they signed Jordan Fuller from the Carolina Panthers. Jordan Fuller played for the Rams when Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator. That makes sense. Then they go out and draft Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame in the 3rd round. 13 interceptions in the last 2 years. That's more than anybody in the FBS. So they got 3 quality safeties. And then I got my sleeper. This guy's name is DeMarco Hellams. He was a 7th round pick 2 years ago. He walks in there, and every film you pick up, I mean, he knocks the shit out of people, man. He got hurt last year, didn't play. You know what they call him? You know what his nickname is? Bam Bam. You ever see that guy in Flintstones? He would be running down there, bam, bam. He would knock the shit out of guys in the cartoon. Watch what happens at the safety position with Bates, Jordan Fuller, Xavier Watch, and Helms. And then at the corner, they got A.J. Terrell. He is number 24, 2 interceptions, over 60 tackles. A.J. Terrell is their star corner. They re-signed Mike Hughes, who was a quality player now, first-round pick of the Vikings. He has found his own and been solid for Atlanta. D. Alford, number 20, was their nickelback. And keep an eye on this Billy Bowman guy. I call him the Bowman. He was a playmaker at Oklahoma. So they have improved on all 3 levels, and they have to improve because their statistics were poor. The Falcons have not had a double-digit sack man since Vic Beasley did it years ago. I mean, that's been some time. Malisack, you were probably not even at Virginia yet. They have been, in the last 6 years, 31st, 21st, 31st, 32nd, 23rd, and 29th in sacks. If they don't attack the pocket, the Falcons will be out of the playoffs again. This defense, step up. Let's dig our cleats in and take our cut. Whew, I gotta go, I'm tired. That's the Atlanta Falcons. Spent a lot of time talking to my old quarterback, Rich Gannon. Nobody watches quarterbacks more than Gannon. I want to hear what he has to say about the Atlanta Falcons quarterback situation. Take it away, Rich. The last team in the NFC South is the Falcons. And I got to ask you this. You go from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Oakland Raiders in 1998. And we gave you a lot of money back then to do that. How would you feel if you and I agreed to come from Kansas City to Oakland? You're my guy, Rich. You're our guy. We have the press conference. And then 3 months later, we draft Mike Penix with the 8th pick. Just maybe, how would you have handled that had we taken a quarterback after I had wined and dined you and gave you a big deal? How would you have handled that? And how do you think your teammates would have handled that?
You know, that was a real head scratcher. And, you and I both know Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk Cousins. I think that, you talk about some physical and mental toughness. This guy has it. Didn't go well for him last year. I don't think people talk enough about the fact that they had a first-time play caller in Zach Robinson. I think there were some real issues early. I don't
think he was healthy either, Rich. I don't think he wasn't ready to go.
No, I don't think so. I think.
But how would you have handled that, man? I mean, what would you have done had I done that to you?
I would have been disappointed. There's no question about it. I mean, you brought me in. I had great success in Minnesota. This is an opportunity. That was the one position that really had held them back. And here you bring in a Pro Bowl caliber player, and then a couple months later you draft a quarterback. Not only that, a quarterback that's had a couple ACL injuries, and so there were some teams that had some real questions about him physically. So everything that could go wrong last year for Kirk Cousins did. John, you mentioned where he was at physically. I don't think he was 100%. I don't think they helped him. Their short yardage and goal line offense for the first 6-7 games of the season was atrocious. I mean, I can't tell you how many 3rd and a foot, 4th and a foot situations that they absolutely. I mean, they're running toss plays. They're just running into overloads, running in unblocked looks. I think Kirk was frustrated with some of the scheme and some of the communication. You and I talk so much about how important communication is. He had a new football team around him, a young team on offense, some young players, a tight end position, a wide receiver, a running back. And that was a tough spot. I think what really was a real turning point was the Denver game. They went out to Denver and got rocked, and he got hit a lot. I mean, and not just hit, but destroyed. And I think that shook him up a lot. I think Raheem and the coaching staff decided to go a different direction. And once they did, there was no looking back. And I think the jury's still out on Michael Penix Jr. I think he did some good things last year, but look, he played in 5 games with 3 starts to finish out the regular season. 2 overtime losses to Washington and Carolina. The completion percentage, anytime you're below 60% in today's NFL, especially with all the bubble screens and the quick game, that's a concern, an area where he has to get better. This is a critical offseason, I think, for Michael Penix Jr.
Drake London is an excellent receiver. He had 100 catches for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and they use a lot of crazy motions. They'll put Ray McCloud in motion, and they'll use a little eye candy. And if they catch a defense in a 4 across coverage, they'll put the back one way, and the flow of the back will take that linebacker with them. And what they'll do with Drake London is they'll let him come up here and run an option route on that nickel corner, just like he did against Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football. He'll break out, he'll break in. They might even let him sit down. But Drake London is a machine at running option routes against one-on-one nickel defenders because they'll clear out the backside. So if he breaks out, there's nobody there. If he breaks in, there's nobody there because that linebacker's relating to the flow of that back. And if they do get to a single safety and play cover 3, they'll have Kyle Pitts on an out and up. They'll have McLeod or another receiver on the out and up, and the quarterback will work this side to this side. It's a pick-a-side play, but if you play a split safety coverage against Drake London, he will rip you apart on these choice routes. Cover 2, what's the choice? Single high, what's the seams? Pick a side with Mike Penix. God, I'm going to get some tickets for the Falcons. Okay, the Carolina Panthers, led by head coach Dave Canales, going into his second season. General manager Dan Morgan working together, building the Carolina Panthers. The owner, David Tepper, he's been there since 2018. He's had a quick trigger, man. He's had 7 head coaches since 2018. He's had 3 different general managers. And since he's been the owner, no playoff appearances, a minus 688 point differential, and just 38 wins. So I know the owner probably wants to see the Panthers get back into the postseason. This is a team that a lot of people may have forgotten, had a late season surge. Remember, the Panthers have been really quiet. You talk about the Lions restoring the roar. The Panthers have been a real quiet cat for about 7 years. They haven't gone to the playoffs. But in their last 3 games, they went 2-1, and they look sharp, eliminating Arizona, eliminating the Atlanta Falcons, and they improved from 2 wins to 5 wins under Dave Canales, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer offensive coordinator, although all 5 wins were against teams with a losing record. But I think the guy to keep an eye on, without a doubt, is Bryce Young. Remember, number 1 overall pick. They gave up a lot to get him. He inherited a horrible team. He was not on a very good team. And they benched him in September. A lot of people out there take a dive in adversity. I kind of crumble in adversity. This guy thrived, man. He watched Andy Dalton come in, and he came back the last 8 games a completely different quarterback. His command, his playmaking, his production was different, man. And in the last 3 games, he completed 65%, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. He knocked the Falcons out, man, in Atlanta. And then he knocked the Arizona Cardinals out, so he was impressive. This team has a good offensive line, 2 very good tackles, 2 powerful guards, and they have 2 centers that can play. They've got 2 running backs here that have rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. Hubbard had 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, and they signed Rico Dowdle from the Dallas Cowboys. He had 1,100 yards rushing. And they drafted Trevor Etienne out of Georgia in the 4th round. They've got 2 big young receivers. They drafted McMillan out of Arizona with the 8th pick, and they drafted Leggett with the 32nd pick the year before, and they're both really big guys. So I like the youth, the development of their offense, but they got a historically bad defense last year, and they've gone out and made numerous changes to resolve that. But last season, they gave up 534 points. I mean, hell, Jake Malasek could have scored against Carolina. They gave up a scoring record last season, 31.4 points per game. Last in the NFL, 31 points a game. Last in yards per game. Last in 3rd down percentage, man. They gave up over 50%. Last in rushing yards per game. Last in yards per play. It's like a punching bag, man. They were bad. So what did they do? They went out and they brought in 5 potential starters in free agency to help this defense. Tershawn Wharton, defensive tackle from Kansas City. Patrick Jones, defensive end from the Vikings. Bobby Brown, a mammoth nose tackle from the Rams. A safety from the Raiders that I drafted. Trayvon Merring, they gave him $51 million. And Christian Rosebloom, linebacker who had over 100 tackles for the Rams. 5 potential starters. And then in the second round, they drafted Nick Scorton, a defensive end from Texas A&M who left Purdue, but he went to Texas A&M. He's a solid edge rusher. And they got this guy, Umanmielen, Princely Umanmielen. 10 sacks at Ole Miss last year. They brought in 2 edge rushers and 5 potential starters to help this defense. That's exciting, man. So the Panthers are trying to help this defense continue to develop their offense. The strange thing they did, though, is they let their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, go. He's out on the street right now. We had Eddie in Oakland when I was coaching the Oakland Raiders. He made 88% of his field goals. They let him go, and they brought in Matthew Wright, who's on about his 9th team. So I don't understand what they're doing at the kicking position, but Dan Morgan and Dave Canales continue to build this Carolina Panther team. Let's get into it. You know, for all you people that play fantasy football, this is the #1 team I think you should keep an eye on, the Carolina Panthers, especially their offense. Dave Canales, their head coach, calls the plays. Brad Idzik is their offensive coordinator. Last year, 23rd in scoring, 29th in total, 18th in rushing offense, 30th in pass offense. But don't forget the emergence of their young quarterback, Bryce Young. He's emerging, man. This is his 2nd year in this system with Dave Canales. They've had a great offseason. They have a physical offensive line, which we'll get into. And they got some guys that can really run the rock, man. They got some guys that can run it inside, outside, and they got some big-time potential receivers on the outside. And Canales knows what he's doing. He runs a balanced offense, a very creative scheme, and he's done a nice job calling plays since he was in Tampa. This quarterback, Bryce Young, has shown a lot more command, a lot more confidence, and a lot more leadership. And everything I've heard about him in the offseason has been very impressive. And he and Dave Canales are collaborating on this system. It's going to be Bryce Young's offense. He's not going to sit in there this year and just learn Dave Canales' plays. He's saying, hey, man, I want this in here. I like this. There's a more collaborative approach, and that's how it should be in the National Football League. But when you watch Bryce Young play, this guy's moving around. He's not the biggest guy, but he gets off the spot, and he maintains vision, and he's making really good, accurate throws, man. Do you like how I did that? Whoop, what? I mean, this guy sees it. He's throwing with anticipation and timing, and the guy can scramble, man. He can get out of trouble, act like he's passing, put it down and run for first downs and touchdowns. I love that. His vision, anticipation's great, but it's his clutch, game-winning performances at the end of games that's really eye-popping. I mean, watch him. In those closing victories, watch this kid in crunch time situations. And the most important thing he's done, improvement-wise, is his ball security. In those last 3 games, 7 touchdowns, no picks. That's impressive, man. That's a huge improvement. Here's where Carolina must improve on 3rd down. They only averaged 17 first downs a game last year. That's bad. And they were 26th on 3rd down percentage. They only converted 36% of the time. And what's killing Carolina is time of possession. A lot of that is because their defense is bad. Their defense just can't get off the field. It used to drive me crazy when I was calling plays, man. And I'm standing over there with my sideline sheet, and our defense is out there all the time. Get off the field, man. The other thing is, we're not helping our defense at all by not converting on 3rd down. So we got to take a good look at Carolina in the preseason on 3rd down, both sides of the ball. The other thing is, they got to improve their play-action pass offense. It's bad. I think they only average about 6 yards a pass on play action. And you would think with Hubbard and this offensive line, you could make some great play-action pass attempts and get some chunk plays. I think they got to do a much better job with that. But their running backs, all you fantasy people out there, you better get to know this Chuba Hubbard guy. He's got 1,200 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns last year. And he missed the last 2 games with a calf strain. Pretty impressive, man. And then they got this guy, Rico Dowdle, from Dallas. I have no idea what Dallas is doing at running back, but they let him go. He had 1,100 yards, 2 1,000-yard backs, and they drafted Trevor Etienne out of Georgia via the Florida Gators. He had over 600 yards. He's got some hands, man. He could help them on third downs. And they drafted Jonathan Brooks, don't forget that, 2 years ago in the second round. He's coming off a knee. But they've invested heavily in the running back position. The offensive line, you got to get to know these guys. Their right tackle, keep an eye on their right tackle, Taylor Moton. He comes into the league, he plays in 120 straight games, starts 104 of them. But this past year, he missed a couple games with a tricep injury. Then he missed a game in week 18 with the knee. And I'm saying now I hear he has a little bit of a pectoral problem, but when Moton is healthy, you can't get to the quarterback. Over 500 pass sets last year, he gave up 1 sack. I'm telling you, man, they need Taylor Moton at right tackle. The other guy I like is their former high first-round pick. This guy, his name is Ekwonu. Ekwonu, say it, Jake. Ekwonu. I like saying this guy's name. He's got long arms. He has prototype size. He's improving as a pass protector. He gave up some sacks. He gets a little bit disoriented with his hands sometimes, and his feet awkwardly, get out of place sometimes, but he is on the rise, man, and he will knock your ass off in a running game, man. So they got 2 good tackles, Moton and Ekwonu. Say it with me. Ekwonu. You like that, don't you, Jake? They got 2 free agent guards that they brought in 2 years ago. Love, Damian Lewis, the ex-Seattle Seahawk, and Robert Hunt, the ex-Miami Dolphin. They will rock you. You ever heard that song, We Will Rock You? I think that's what they say when they break the huddle in Carolina. And they got 2 centers. Austin Corbett started the first 5 games. He got hurt. And Cade Mays finishes the season pretty good. Keep an eye on the battle at center. They're both back. They're both healthy. So they got a good offensive line. And what I like about their running game is they don't lose yards. Some of these running games, these RPOs, good God, the running back gets high load 4 yards deep in the backfield. The Panthers rarely lose yardage on running plays. They do a nice job at the line of scrimmage, and statistics will back that up. If you're into PFF or GFF or any FF, stats will back that up. The Carolina Panthers also have 3 young tight ends. Think about this now. Jatavian Sanders out of Texas, a former 4th-round pick. If you watch these guys play the first 10 games, you see a lot of Sanders. He had 33 grabs, 350 yards. But he hurt his neck. I think it was week 12. Then he's inactive, and he really isn't himself down the stretch. This young man from Texas, Jatavian Sanders, is going to be a weapon that you're going to hear from in Carolina. And I like Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame. Keep an eye on Tremble. He had some back surgery in May. I don't like hearing that, but I hope he's okay. He had 23 grabs, 2 touchdowns. He's a big blocking type tight end. And then they drafted Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. So they've got 2 Notre Dame tight ends, and they got the Texas Longhorn Sanders that give them some versatility in the running game and pass protection. Now the receivers, this is an interesting group. 3 young players and 2 veteran players that bring something if they're healthy. I want to say this about Totoro. How do you say it?
Tataroa.
Say it with me. Tataroa McMillan. All I know is he's a big dude that makes big catches at Arizona. I mean, 3,500 yards of them. He is the #1 all-time Wildcat wide receiver. And he gives Dave Canales his version of Mike Evans, who he had in Tampa, a big 50-50 playmaker on the outside. How do you say it again? Tataroa. See how he has that pronunciation down? That's really good. The other guy they got from South Carolina, Xavier Legette, he was the last pick in the first round 2 years ago, 49 catches, almost 500 yards. He had 8 drops. We got to keep an eye on Leggett. He gets open, which is the hardest thing to do in the NFL, but 8 drops, 14% of his targets, he dropped the football. That's not good. He's got to improve with his hands. And then out of nowhere comes J-Led Coker. Where'd he go to college? Holy Cross. Did we open up that box or what? This guy's undrafted free agent. He comes in with almost 500 yards. And when we talked to Bryce Young at the Super Bowl, he was raving about this kid. And don't forget Adam Thielen. He's been around a long time. He is the Panthers' returning receiving leader, 615 yards. He had 5 touchdowns, but he missed his last 7 games with a hamstring. So if he comes back, that veteran savvy helps these young receivers, and they brought in another ex-Raider, Hunter Renfrow. That kid had 100 catches, went to the Pro Bowl in 2021. He's had some health problems, and it impacted him in 22 and 23. He just had 600 yards. He was out of football in 2024. Keep an eye on Hunter Renfrow during the preseason. But this is an interesting crowd. 3 young guys and 2 vets. A very interesting group of tight ends. I love the line. 2 1,000-yard backs and the emerging Bryce Young. Let's go. You know, there's a lot of pressure on Bryce Young. When you trade up like the Panthers did to get Bryce Young, we have to give up a lot to get him. I was traded in my life, and I remember the pressure walking into a new building. Think about this. The Panthers traded up to get Bryce Young. Well, what did the Bears get? The Bears got Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, a wide receiver, a starting right tackle, Darnell Wright, a starting corner, Tyreek Stevenson, and a wide receiver this year, Luther Burden out of Missouri. So you really look at the trade, 5 for 1, you got to live with it, but you still got to see through the pressure, and you got to deliver, just like Bryce Young did those last 3 weeks. Okay, on defense, this is where the Carolina Panthers have to show great improvement. And this is where they made a lot of investments in the offseason. They have a really good young defensive coordinator. He used to be on my staff, Ejiro Evero. I like this guy, man. But they're going to have to listen to negativity the whole offseason. Don't you like negative people, Jake? No, you don't. We like positivity, but they are going to have to hear a lot of negativity. The Panthers are horrible on defense. They gave up 31.5 points, an NFL record amount of points. 534 points, man. That's bad. 21 points or more in 16 different games. Never been done before. Congratulations. They have a horrible rushing defense. They got gashed. 83 runs of 10 yards or more. That's impossible, man. 180 yards a game. And they're last in pressuring the quarterback. We have all these stats now. Hell, we put cameras on the back of your butt. The quarterback stands back there and he has no pressure. They're the worst pressure defense in the league, and they blitz quite a bit. 9th in the league in blitzes. And they're horrible on 3rd down. They are one of 2 teams since 2000 to give up over 50% or more on 3rd down. I mean, the 2020 Titans did it, and so did the 2024 Panthers. So bad. You get tired of it, but they got to deal with that. They had a lot of injuries last year. I mean, a lot. And we're going to get into what are they doing personnel now to fix it. That's what they got to do. To fix it, you got to invest the time and the resources in some new people. And that's what they did. The defensive line is where you got to really pay attention. When I coached for Tampa, we had to go play the Panthers twice a year. And Julius Peppers was a mofo, okay? And Chris Jenkins was a real mofo. And then he had Mike Rucker, and it was hard to make an inch. You know what I mean? It was hard. People are like, hey, what's wrong with you, Gruden? Well, those guys are really hard to block. The Panthers get Derek Brown back. Derek Brown is a Pro Bowl badass who missed every game last year except the few snaps in the opener. Derek Brown broke an NFL record in 2023. He had over 100 tackles. That's never been done in the history of pro football. So you get Derek Brown back. Then you go out and you sign Bobby Brown, the monster nose tackle of the LA Rams. You give him $21 million for 3 years. Then you go to Kansas City and you get Tershawn Wharton, who had 6.5 sacks, and he's a defensive tackle. He gets $45 million. We're not done yet. We get Patrick Jones from the Minnesota Vikings to come off the edge, rush the passer. That's exciting. And then in the draft, we take 2 defensive ends, Nick Scorton, who had 10 sacks at Purdue, and then I guess in the NIL, he just left and went to Texas A&M, had 5 more there. And then they have this man, Uman-Mi-Ellen. Say it, Jake.
Uman-Mi-Ellen.
Uman-Mi-Ellen. Jake's my pronunciation guy. He's at Ole Miss. He has 10 sacks. They have 2 more edge rushers. So they added a nucleus of players to really fix the problem, stopping the run and getting to the passer. And now I think they have the firepower to do it. In their 3-4 base alignment this year, Bobby Brown should be the nose tackle. And his backup, Shy Tuttle, who was in Carolina last year, that's pretty solid at that position. The 2 defensive ends, you got the Pro Bowler Derek Brown, you got Tershawn Wharton. That's a lot better than last year. And how about your outside linebackers? Patrick Jones of the Vikings and DJ Wanham of Panther, who had 5.5 sacks last year. They look like something. And then when you get into the 4th quarter pass rush or the 3rd down situations, they go nickel with Patrick Jones, Derek Brown. You got Wharton and Wanham on the field together. You got Ashawn Robinson. And then you got Cam Jackson, a guy you just drafted out of Florida. Hell's bells. You got the 2 rookies, Scorton and Uman-Mi-Ellen. Say it, Jake.
Uman-Mi-Ellen.
Shit, they got a lot of guys. I mean, they're a completely different front 4. So now when Tampa comes in here or Atlanta comes in here with all these weapons and all these passes, you got some guys that can at least execute and get them in 3rd down and long. The linebacking core is the biggest concern for me with the Carolina Panthers. Josie Jewell, 2nd leading tackler, 97 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, hell of a player, was just released. He has a concussion. It's tragic. His career is in jeopardy, but they cut him. So now Trevin Wallace, former 3rd rounder out of Kentucky, number 32, a guy I like. Hell, he's coming off shoulder surgery. And here's Christian Rosebloom, the man they signed from the LA Rams. Rosebloom was a pretty much special teams player until last season. He had over 130 tackles. I expect Rosebloom and Wallace to be the inside linebackers. They have some backups. They got Sherrillis out of Alcorn State. They got Winman out of Michigan State, 2 young guys to give them some competition and depth. But we have Rosebloom, who's brand new, and Wallace coming off an injury at linebacker. The Josie Jewell injury is a concern. What about the secondary? Ask me, Clay, what about the secondary?
What about the secondary?
Secondary has J.C. Horn, Pro Bowler, $100 million man. My only concern with Horn is his availability. You know, in his first 3 seasons, he missed 29 out of 51 games, Jake. Last year, he missed 2 games. He's got to be out there every down, finding the best receivers and being an impact for this Carolina team. He's one corner. I think the other corner is going to be Mike Jackson, the former Dallas Cowboy. He's kind of a journeyman, a Miami Hurricane, but he's found a niche here in Carolina. But I'll say this to Mike Jackson. If you're a quarterback, you walk up to the line of scrimmage and you see J.C. Horn over there and Mike Jackson over there, which receiver would you throw at?
Jackson.
He throw it at Jackson probably. So Jackson, he better have a hell of a camp. One of my favorite Gruden grinders in all of football after studying Carolina is Shaw Smith-Wade. This guy here, 5th round pick 2 years ago out of Washington State. He is a hell of a football player. He can play nickel, he can play corner, he can play safety, he can play football with the best of them. He's number 26. I call him Shaw Smith-Wade. I love watching this cat play, man. He's a hell of a player. Now the safeties, they have a new look. They brought in Trayvon Merring from the Raiders. I thought Merring would be a perfect free safety. He had a ton of interceptions at TCU. Hell, I watched him play for the Raiders last year. He's in the box. He's right near the line of scrimmage. He has over 100 tackles. He plays in 17 games. That's why they gave him $51 million. He can play. So who is the other safety? Right now, I think it's Damani Richardson. It could be their rookie, Ransom, out of Ohio State, a 4th round pick. Ask yourself this if you're Carolina. What are we doing at linebacker? Let's keep an eye on these linebackers, the inside backers, and let's take a look at who is the other safety opposite Trayvon Merring. That'll be interesting. And is Mike Jackson ready for Mike Evans? Is he ready? Coming over here looking for the receivers of the Atlanta Falcons. Is he ready for Olave? That's the question the Panthers got to answer. But they have made a big effort to improve this defense. Hey, let's go to Rich Gannon and see what he says about the Carolina Panther quarterback situation.
We have 7 new head coaches this year. 7. We've had 35 in the last 5 years. That's incredible.
Why do you think I have the Fired Football Coaches Association? Hell, you're right. There is no continuity. When I got into the league in '98 as a head coach, I went to the league meetings and I looked around the building of the guys I got to beat. I see Marty Schottenheimer, Tom Coughlin, Bill Parcells, Bill Cowher, Mike Shanahan. I mean, Dan Reeves. I associated every team with their coach. And I said, shit, I may never win a game looking at these guys. But now they cycle through coaches and coordinators like they change shirts. And I think the lack of continuity has really hurt the quarterback position when it comes to developing some of these young guys that are coming in.
John, just look at the numbers. Since 2015, we've had at least 5 different head coaches every year. And you mentioned coordinator changes. 12 new offensive coordinators this year, 11 new defensive coordinators. And I think when you talk about young quarterbacks, we got a lot of examples where we have Caleb Williams in Chicago. We got Drake May in New England. They started last year as rookies. And in year 2, we pulled the rug out from under them. And we bring in a new coach. We bring in new coordinators, bring in a new playbook. That's kind of a dysfunctional way to develop a young quarterback. And I'm concerned, I know you are as well, when you look across the landscape of the National Football League at all this change. You know, you and I know that one thing that's constant in our profession is change, but too much of it is never a good thing, especially around these young quarterbacks. I just think there's a lot of examples where these guys struggle early on because they've been in so many different systems, they've had so many different play callers, and they lose confidence. And I just think there's a lot of examples of that. I think there's a great example of what's going on in Carolina. You know, we've got a young quarterback that's been through a lot of change, right? And I'm very anxious to see what Bryce Young can do in year 3. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I want to stay in the NFC South. We've talked about Baker Mayfield. Now, as you move it to Bryce Young, here's a guy that gets benched. And you can echo how it feels because you're in Minnesota, you're in Washington, you've been in and out of the lineup. But Andy Dalton takes over, shows him the way, gives him a chance to take a deep breath. And I tell you, Rich, I met Bryce Young and did an interview with him at the Super Bowl. He's got some grade A stuff inside of him. He's got great intangibles, but his athleticism and playmaking really started to show up in that last 5 or 6 week stint of last season. He went to Atlanta and knocked them out of the playoffs, put 40 on them. He knocked Arizona out of the playoffs, put 35 on them. He's a guy that can run and create. And I think in year 2 of Canales' system and some better receivers, they drafted the big kid from Arizona. They brought in Hunter Renfrow, one of my former guys. I think they've got 2 really good guards. I think they got a chance to really be a factor in the South and push some people.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what he can do, right? I think the first year was a total train wreck. As you said, early on, and sometimes as young quarterbacks, we develop bad habits, right? And I think he spent so much time in the gun. His footwork was atrocious. He wasn't under center. I don't think they helped him in terms of marrying the run game with the play action game. I just think he developed some bad habits. I think you go into year 2, he started last season, got off to another sluggish start. There was real concern there. I think Canales did the right thing. They got him out of there. They put Andy Dalton in there, let him sit and watch and learn a little bit. And then when he got the chance to come back in late in the season, he looked like a different player to me. I think, you look at, he played in some big, the game against Kansas City got my attention. I mean, I watched that game from start to finish. He went toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes, made a lot of big plays down the stretch. I think he did some good things. 3 overtime wins, 2 in the last 3 weeks of the season. I think they go into the offseason with some confidence and momentum. You mentioned drafting another receiver in the first round. I think they're trying to get better personnel around him. I think they're trying to address the offensive line, the defense as well. But 6-22 as a starter, he's got a lot of ground to make up. He's not the biggest guy, John. Talk about that because I've talked to a lot of general managers over the year, and talked to Hall of Famers. Bill Polian is a guy that I've spent some time with. And when you look at drafting a quarterback that's around 6 foot, and you say to yourself, well, let's just look at last 20 years, quarterbacks that are 6 feet or smaller, and look at their body of work. How many of them had, won Super Bowls? How many of them played or started 10 or 12 years? That's the concern that I think you have a little bit. He's not the biggest guy. Tough, make a lot of plays, off script. But just your thoughts on your comfort level when you have a quarterback that's not 6'3" or 6'5", a smaller quarterback like Bryce Young.
Well, I'm a big believer in the measurables after working for Al Davis. If you can't run, you can't play for the Raiders. You need a Raider body to be on the offensive line. But at the quarterback position, remember, there are exceptions to every rule. Fran Tarkenton, Doug Flutie, Drew Brees. A lot of these guys aren't tall. They're not the status quo. But as the number 1 overall pick in the draft, if you don't have the physical traits, you're reaching because the analytics tell you you're reaching. So there are some concerns. And I thought he did play small, Rich, his first year or so. I didn't think he had a real good status in the pocket. I thought he had a hard time seeing. It looked like the rush as it compressed around him really inhibited his ability to see and throw the ball accurately. But I think as they've improved with their system, with their personnel, and I think his confidence level, I think he has shown that he can function. But can you do it for the length of a 17-game regular season? Can you do it in horseshit weather when the wind is blowing sideways? Do you have the arm to go on the road in Buffalo or Kansas City or New England, a tough place to play in December, and win with the physical limitations? That's something he's got to prove. I love watching the development of Bryce Young, Carolina quarterback. He's getting better. He's seeing the field, and some of the routes they run, they're full field reads. One of them I call X shallow cross, and we tag it with F swing. But out of a trips formation, you'll see the tight end Sanders. He's going to hook over the ball 10 to 12 yards deep. And normally that's the number 1 read, with the secondary read coming hard on a shallow cross, reading man or zone. He'll stay on the move against man, and he'll sit down versus zone. But that's really the progression. 1, 2, and the back checking wide would be your outlet as number 3. But when they tag it with F swing, you'll see Adam Thielen hesitate just slightly and let his outside receiver inside release and possibly pick that defender as Thielen swings down the far sideline. And if Bryce Young likes it because it's double bump and run coverage, he'll peek that swing route before he gets to his read on the X shallow cross. And Young can throw it over your head, or he'll back shoulder the experienced Thielen. It's a beautiful thing to watch. X shallow cross with the built-in F swing. Check it out. Okay, the New Orleans Saints, they've gone through a lot of changes, kind of like my hairstyles. You know, I just got the training camp haircut. But they went 5-12, a very disappointing 2024 season, and they brought in a new head coach. Kellen Moore, the former offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, the LA Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore gets the keys to the New Orleans Saints. He also has a new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, who he worked with when Moore was the offensive coordinator and Brandon Staley was the head coach of the LA Chargers. Staley brings in a 3-4 defense, and this will be the first time the Saints are in this 3-4 alignment since the Dome Patrol 30 years ago. That was Swilling and Ricky Jackson, Sam Mills, I think Vaughn Johnson. I mean, that was a hell of a team. They also are going to have a new quarterback. Derek Carr retired, and they've got a bunch of young arms in camp that are trying to get that job. They will have a new opening day starter at left tackle, and I think they're going to have 2 brand new corners with Adebo gone and Marshawn Lattimore also gone. There's a lot of change in New Orleans. They've been in salary cap purgatory. I have heard they're as much as $54 million over the cap. That's tough. That's really tough. They have had some notable additions, 2 guys in particular. Brandon Cooks, the 32-year-old former Saint, former Dallas Cowboy, is back, and I think he's going to play a big role in this young receiver corps. They also brought in world champion safety Justin Reed, a former Kansas City Chief, to add some communication and playmaking into this secondary. They started 2-0 last year. They scored 91 points in their first 2 games. I was like, who dat, man? I was going crazy. But then injuries hit, and it was more like catastrophic injuries. They won only 3 games out of their last 15. They finished 3-12, and they were 31st in the league in scoring from week 3 to week 18. The only teams they beat were the 3-win Browns, the 3-win Giants, and the 8-win Atlanta Falcons. It was a struggle. And it wasn't just the injuries. It was catastrophic injuries. Starting quarterback Derek Carr missed 7 games. The Saints went 0-7 when he wasn't in there. They lost both of their receivers. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, missed more than half the season. They lost linemen. Ramczyk, their very good right tackle, never played. They lost Eric McCoy. They lost their left guard. They had 9 different starters on their offensive line. I mean, that'll make you sick as a coach. And then they lose Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, their 2 tight ends, to terrible knee injuries during the season. Alvin Kamara misses the last 3 games. So there's a lot of catastrophic injuries that did take place. And their defense has an aging core of players. Demario Davis is 36, Cam Jordan is 36, and Tyrann Mathieu is 33 years old. They're still great leaders and can still play, but they are getting up there. That's why I think there's a youth movement in New Orleans. They drafted Kelvin Banks in the first round. I believe he'll be their starting opening day left tackle. But then they went out and got Tyler Shuck to be their future quarterback. And after that, they brought in some defensive players to supplement their aging core. Vernon Broughton, defensive end from Texas. Jonas Sanker, where'd he go to college? Ballasack.
Virginia.
And you love him. He's going to fit in nice with this young secondary. Danny Stutzman, former FFCA graduate, linebacker from Oklahoma. Quincy Riley, a cornerback from Louisville. They went out and added some good players to give them a youth movement that I think they need in New Orleans. They do have a very good kicker, Blake Group. He's 27 out of 31 last year, and he's 6 for 8 in long-range field goals. That's pretty darn good. This is a team that needed an injection of young players. They got that in the draft. The one thing I love about the Saints, though, it's not always dark. It's not always as dim as it seems. They've had a history of finding players from underground. Where'd they get these guys? I mean, think about it. Pierre Thomas, Chris Ivory, Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, Jimmy Graham, Rashid Shaheed, Willie Snead, even the great Sam Mills. 7th round picks, not even drafted players. Mickey Loomis and his staff, they're going to come up with some sleepers. That's why you better pay attention to the Saints in the preseason. Okay, let's zoom in on the New Orleans Saints offense. Head coach Kellen Moore is going to call the plays, I do believe. And if you study Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator over the last 6 years, when he was in Dallas, everybody said, man, he throws the ball a lot. They throw the ball a lot. Then he went to the Chargers with Justin Herbert. Man, they throw the ball a lot. They throw the ball a lot. Then he went to Philadelphia as the offensive coordinator. Everybody said he runs the ball all the time. So he has proven that he can adapt to a pass offense or a rushing attack featured offense. He can do it all. This guy's a versatile coach. He surrounded himself with Coach Nussmeier, Scott Tolzien, quarterback developers, and they're going to need all 3 of these men to develop these young arms. But remember, Kellen Moore had a lot to do with Dak Prescott's best years. He had a lot to do with Justin Herbert's best years, and he did just win a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. So you have a guy that has a history of not only playing the position, but he's also a very good coach of the position. And he was on Gruden's QB class years ago when he was coming out of Boise State. Don't forget that. When I look at Kellen Moore's offense, he really leads the league in these RPOs, run-pass options. Their running game oftentimes has a built-in pass to it. And these quarterbacks are going to be asked to catch the ball in a shotgun, read a defensive player while they're working the mesh of the exchange with the back. If it's a good look, they hand it. If it's a bad look, they'll pull it and they'll throw a quick pass someplace. 275 RPOs in Philadelphia last year, far and away number one in the league. And when he was with the Chargers 2 years ago, they were second in the league in the RPO usage. So keep an eye on that if you're a Saints fan. He has had a lot of success with running backs. In Dallas, Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. Another season, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. When he was with the Chargers, Austin Eckler had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Used to drive me crazy, that freaking Austin Eckler, man. He was tough. And now he gets the keys to Alvin Kamara. And don't forget, Saquon Barkley had over 2,000 yards with Kellen Moore calling the plays. I'm anxious to see how Alvin Kamara looks in Kellen Moore's offense. We got to keep an eye on the quarterback position. You got to stay with me here, everybody, because this is the youngest, most inexperienced quarterback position in the NFL. This is going to be tough. Tyler Shough was taken in the second round to be the quarterback of the Saints, I believe. Why else would they take him with the 40th overall pick? They have not taken a quarterback this high in New Orleans since Archie Manning in 1971. And remember, Shough is going to be 26 years old in September. He spent 7 years in college football. He started at Oregon, backing up Justin Herbert. Then he went to Texas Tech. Then he went to Louisville. He had some red shirt issues. He broke a collarbone. He broke his leg. This guy's been through a lot. But he is a talented SOB, man. We spent the day with him here. He has a wide base. He rarely steps and throws. He's got a very good base and a quick release, and he can hum it, man. 6'5", 230 pounds. I like his experience because I think he's a mentally tough guy. He's been hurt and had to come back. He's been benched and had to come back. He's had to learn new offenses. He's had to deal with all kinds of different players. And when I met him, I walked away thinking, man, I wish I had Tyler Shough on my team. I like the guy. I also like Spencer Rattler. He was 0-6 as a starter last year with beat-up receivers, beat-up tight ends, beat-up running backs. Everybody was beat up. That guy competes. He's got a history of being a talented guy. In high school, at Oklahoma, at South Carolina, he does have some NFL experience. And I also like Jake Haener. Haener's been in here a lot. He's 0-1 as a starter. He threw for 226 yards last year. Rattler threw for 1,300. Haener missed the entire spring with an oblique injury, but Haener played for Kellen Moore's brother at Fresno. He's known Kellen Moore for 10 years. And I think this system is really going to help Haener. So it's going to be a competitive situation. But here's the problem. It's hard to get one quarterback ready to play in this league. He needs all the reps. How are you going to get two guys ready? 3? What the hell are we doing? And they're all young guys. So what are they going to do? Pretty soon they're going to have to decide who their guy is, and they got to feed him the reps. Let's keep an eye on this situation throughout the preseason. All three quarterbacks have been all over the place. We already said Shough went to 3 colleges. Rattler went to 2. Hell, Jake Haener went to Washington. He transferred to Fresno. Jake Haener's been there. He played for Coach Carmichael's offense. Then he had Clint Kubiak. Now he's got Kellen Moore. These poor guys, they have had to learn a lot of systems, but they better learn this one fast. And I'll say this, Alvin Kamara, he is a badass. He had 950 yards rushing last year. That's a career high for him. But his ability to catch the ball makes him a dual threat badass. He was the number 1 target for the Saints last year. They targeted him 89 times and he caught 63 passes. He's one of the few backs in NFL history to have over 1,100 yards from scrimmage 7 straight years. I mean, you're talking about LaDainian Tomlinson, Eddie George. You're talking about my guy, Ricky Waters. Kamara is something else. He had 21 touches a game last year. That's 5th in the NFL. I believe he's healthy, but who? I'm an owl again. Who is his backup? Kendre Miller? I hope so. He had 39 for 148 last year, but he's got to play better in a passing game, man. And he's got to pick up blitzes a whole lot better. They drafted Devin Neal. Keep an eye on him, fantasy fans. Devin Neal out of Kansas. He's a good player, man. 5'11", 215. I think he's a guy that could be a factor here. And remember this, Taysom Hill carried the ball for 275 yards. He's out. He hurt his knee, and he bailed the Saints out in short yardage, goal line, 4-minute drill at the end of the game. So there's a lot of transition in this running game. The key to the Saints' offense is their offensive line. Remember this, they have huge investments in their offensive line. Kelvin Banks, he's their left tackle. He was their first-round pick this year. He's a natural. He's got great hands, great feet. He's an athlete, man. He can redirect and recover. Trevor Penning, former first-round pick, is their left guard. Eric McCoy, solid center, man. He can make all the calls. He was a second-round pick. Cesar Ruiz, former first-round pick, is their right guard. And I love this name right here. Tali Ese Fuaga. Say it with me. Tali Ese Fuaga. He's a former first rounder. He played left tackle. Now he's over at right tackle. 4 first-round picks and a second-round pick. This has to be the strength of this Saints offense. They do have some quality depth, but I love this outfit. And their wide receiving core, their tight end core, this is a crowd that has a lot of work to do. Their young receivers, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, both injured last year. Olave had 2 concussions. He's had 4 concussions in 4 years. We got to keep an eye on that. Only 32 for 400 after 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Olave's got to get healthy and stay healthy. He's their number 1 guy. Rashid Shaheed, the most dangerous return man in football. This guy can haul ass, man. Al Davis would have loved him. He's their home run threat, 17.5 yards a catch. Just 20 catches, but he's coming off a knee as well. The addition of Brandon Cooks. He was hurt in Dallas last year. He had a knee infection. Hell, everybody got hurt. But Cooks has stop and start quickness. He's a great route runner. If you're a fantasy football fan, Brandon Cooks, man, circle star asterisk, he's going to be a sleeper. Bub Means was a draft choice last year. Hell, he got hurt. Then they have an arsenal of young guys who got to play. Mason Tipton out of Yale, Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin Jr. They got a lot of candidates here, but they are fantasy sleepers for some of you guys that watch the waiver wire. You know what I mean? The tight end position decimated by injuries. Foster Moreau, former Raider, 6 touchdown catches he had. He got hurt in week 18. He won't be ready to start the season. Taysom Hill, we already talked about him. Hurt his knee, he's out. So it's going to be Juwan Johnson, 50 catches, 548 yards, but he's not the big blocking tight end. He's a receiving, converted wide receiver at Oregon, 2 tight end. Keep an eye on Jack Stoll, the ex-Miami Dolphin, and this Holker guy out of Colorado State. He had 3 catches for 21 yards, but he's going to have to play number 85. This is a work in progress. It's a talented young offensive line. It's a beat-up receiver and tight end crowd. Kamara's the star, and Kellen Moore has got to find his quarterback. Stay tuned. There's a lot of unsolved mysteries in New Orleans. Okay, the New Orleans Saints defense, they have new leadership. Brandon Staley, the ex-head coach of the LA Chargers. He's coming in with Kellen Moore, the head coach who he had on his staff in the Charger land, and they have some history working together, which is going to be meaningful. They're going to return to a 3-4 base defense, meaning they're going to have a nose tackle covering the center. They brought in Devon Godchaw from the Patriots to cover the center and 2-gap him. Keep that center, snatch him if the ball's over here, over there, go over there. I mean, you got to be able to play 2 gaps and control the center, and Godchaw can do that. They're going to have 2 defensive ends, I assume, Brian Breesy, former first-round pick, and Jonathan Bullard, who's bounced around the league. He's a body snatcher. He was just with the Minnesota Vikings. So they got guys that can chew up blocks. And I expect Carl Granderson, Chase Young to be the outside linebackers. They're going to keep that ball inside. They're going to work hard on the line of scrimmage to set the edge. And then there are two inside linebackers, veteran Pete Werner and Demario Davis, one of my all-time favorite players. That represents a 3-4 defense. The guards will be uncovered quite a bit. It's very important that this defense, under Brandon Staley's leadership, they got to eliminate the explosive plays. The Saints gave up way too many big plays last year. And when you watch the Saints this year, you'll see some 3-4 defense, and you're going to see some split safety coverages. It's not cover 2 all the time. Sometimes it's 4 deep. Sometimes it's 2 deep. Sometimes it's quarter, half. Sometimes they roll this way. Sometimes they roll that way. But they try to keep an umbrella on the offense. They try to eliminate the explosive plays, keep everything in front of us, and let's limit the damage. That's what Staley's defense will do. This was a poor defense in 2024, 30th in the NFL in yards allowed, 380 yards per game, 31st against the run. They gave up 141 yards a game, almost 5 yards a carry. And when I think about the Saints, I don't think about them being 31st against the run, especially with Demario Davis on the football team. They do have an aging core. How many times are we going to say that? Cam Jordan's 36. Demario's 36. Tyrann Mathieu 33. Well, you know what? They can still be players, and they can still be dynamic leaders. They can say, hey, pick it up out here. They can get after some of these young guys, show them the way. And that's just what they're counting on these guys to do. Make some plays and develop these young players. That's what excites me. I'll say this. The Saints missed way too many tackles last year. I mean, it's hard to watch. I make a highlight reel of missed tackles to show guys how not to tackle. The Saints were too many times on that reel. And that's what resulted in big runs, big yards after the catch, missed tackles. I get sick thinking about it. Anyways, we got to keep an eye on that. The defensive line, they've got a lot of new players with this new scheme. The nose tackles, I look for Godshaw to be the starter. They traded for him. They got him from the Patriots. Nathan Shepard has been there. They brought back Kalen Saunders, who's been around the league a little bit. They've got 3 guys that can play the nose. The base defensive end, Jonathan Bowler. They got Vernon Broughton, a guy they drafted out of Texas. Jonah Williams, Brian Breesy. They got some candidates there. Chris Rump, Jonah Williams. They got a lot of guys that can play the end position. But the marquee position are these edge guys. These are where the sacks are going to come from. I believe Carl Granderson has got to return to the level that he's capable of playing at. And I think Chase Young can play better as well in this scheme. Both of those guys had 5.5 sacks last year. And Brian Breesy, their former first-round pick, led the Saints last year with 7.5 sacks. So I think in their fourth quarter, their third down pass rush, you got Granderson, Breesy, Cam Jordan. They'll use them creatively. Chase Young, at least they have some better rushers, I believe, to get after the quarterback. And keep an eye on this Isaiah Foskey. He's a former second-round pick. This is his third year. He has no sacks. They got to get something out of Foskey fast to give these Saints another rusher. But the front is changing with the addition of Brandon Staley. The linebacking core, quite simply, Demario Davis, as much as you want to say he's 36 years old, he'll still knock your ass off, man. He's a hell of a player. He led the team 136 tackles. And when Staley calls a blitz, bet your ass Demario Davis will be the guy blitzing. Pete Werner's still very good. He can play in every down. He had 92 tackles. This is the top 2 New Orleans Saint tacklers. They also drafted Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. I think he's going to be mentored by Demario Davis. We like Stutzman a lot. We think he's got instincts, he got a nose for the ball, and he'll hit you. They got a couple young linebackers, DeMarco Jackson from App State. They got a couple other young guys that haven't done much. They got to start picking it up. The Saints need them. The secondary, we're going to see 2 new opening day starters at corner. Former second-round pick Kool-Aid McKinstry, he wears number 4. He came out of Alabama. I didn't think he reached his true potential at Alabama. That's why he went in the second round. But when I watch this kid play, he wears number 4. He's really physical. I think he got better. He started the last 7 games. Can he be a number 1 guy? Boy, they need one in this NFC South because there's some tough matchups. They also signed Isaac Yiadom. He'll be wearing number 27. Recently with the 49ers, he has ties to defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, but Yiadom's been on 7 teams now. So obviously, quarterbacks have helped him find new work. You know what I mean? They've got after Yiadom. Alontae Taylor is the nickel corner. I think Alontae Taylor could be the star in Brandon Staley's defense. In Charger land, he used Derwin James, and I think he's going to use Alontae Taylor as a blitzer. Taylor had 89 tackles and 4 sacks last year. I think you could look for him to have a lot of blitzes on his plate this year. The 2 safeties are veterans, Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed. Think about this. Combined, these 2 guys have 273 starts. They have 46 picks, over 1,400 tackles, and together they played at Houston. So they have some experience roaming a secondary together. But what I like the most is not only their leadership and history, is I like these 2 young safeties for the New Orleans Saints. They just drafted Jonas Sanker. Where's he from, Jake?
Virginia.
And he's a hell of a player. And they drafted Jordan Howden, number 31, the year before. They have 2 young safeties to watch these 2 veteran guys, some emerging corners with Taylor and McKinstry. I like this mix. And they drafted Quincy Riley in the 4th round out of Louisville. So there's some young, up-and-coming Saints on the back end that I really like. Don't forget J.T. Gray, who's in his 7th year. But this is an interesting transition. 4-3 to 3-4. Got to tackle better. Got to get after the passer. And let's hope Granderson, Chase Young, Cam Jordan, Breesy, and the additions, okay, of Godchaw and Bullard can give the Saints some girth in the running game. Okay, let's go back to Rich Gannon and see what he says about the Saints quarterback room. Shuck is a rookie from Louisville. People's jaws dropped when they drafted him in a 2nd round. They got Rattler, who played 5 or 6 games last year from South Carolina, and they've got Jake Hayner, a young man who started 1 game from Fresno. What are the Saints going to do to try to get one of these 3 young guys ready to go?
John, could you imagine being Kellen Moore? Here you get an opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League, and you walk into a quarterback room. Think about this for just a second. You walk into a quarterback room with 3 guys. One has never played in the NFL, but the other 2 never won a game in the NFL. You know, Spencer Rattler played in 6 games last year. They're 0-6. You know, and he's not a big guy either. He's a 6-foot quarterback. You know, Jake Hayner's a 6-foot quarterback. He got a start last year. That didn't go well. And so, you know, Derek Carr retires. You know, with Derek Carr, they had a guy that could handle a ton of volume, a ton of information. When the pocket was clean, he could spin it with the best of them. And you lose that experience. And now when you look at that division, we talked about Baker Mayfield. We talked about Bryce Young in year 3. The Saints went out and drafted a quarterback last year in the 1st round. You got to look at the Saints situation, and you got to say this is maybe one of the worst situations in the NFL. I can't imagine that they're going to go into the season with just those 3. There's got to be a Kirk Cousins conversation. Maybe we do something with the Falcons. Maybe we bring in a veteran quarterback. I just don't know how you begin the season that way. And you and I looked at a lot of tape of Tyler Shuck, big kid out of Louisville. But, you know, there's a guy that there's a reason why he wasn't a 1st-round draft pick. So I just think it may be the worst situation in the NFL right now. When we talk about a lack of experience, just the uncertainty of it all, and then trying to go up against that Bucs defense. Carolina's going to be better on defense. I think the Falcons got a chance to be better on defense. And you look at their schedule, the first 6-7 weeks of the season, not an ideal situation for Kellen Moore.
Well, what do you do when the collective bargaining agreement says you only can have a 2-hour practice? You can have 15 plays of 7-on-7. You can have 15 reps of team run. You can have 15 reps of bootlegs and perimeter offense. Who gets the reps? Because you can't get three guys ready to play. You might as well go all in on one of these guys. What's your take on that? You took all the reps when you're the starting quarterback, and Rodney Peete would come in and get some crumbs, but you can't give three young quarterbacks enough time to get ready, I don't think.
Well, it's the same. I mean, what are the Browns going to do? They've got 5 quarterbacks.
Oh, we're staying on the NFC South.
I understand, but it's a similar situation. It's a similar situation. I don't know how you go into training camp not emphasizing one player. In other words, you have to know coming out of the spring, all things being said, this is the guy that's probably going to be the starter, gives us the best chance of winning, and we have to give him the majority of the reps. John, there's just not enough reps to go around. You can't split them up evenly. You know that. And we got to find out. And I think, every rep is important in training camp because there's less of them. Back in the day when, we were together in Napa, we had two-a-days. I mean, they were legit two-a-days. I can't even go to training camp practices anymore. It drives me crazy. I walk out in the practice field in the afternoon and they're wearing shorts, T-shirts, and a baseball cap. And it's a walkthrough. And I'm like, what are we getting out of this? I know teams are trying to go to more scrimmages with other teams. That makes some sense. Be able to control, the script, to be able to control the periods and those type of things. But I just think when you're looking at the situation in New Orleans, each of them need competitive reps. They need, blitz period reps. They need 2-minute reps. They need red zone reps. And, they need live reps. And it's just that there's not enough snaps in the preseason. But that's going to be a very interesting situation for Kellen Moore and that staff down there in New Orleans. A lot of inexperience on that staff, a lot of inexperience in the quarterback room. I can't imagine they'll begin the season that way.
It'll be a challenge. And I think who deals with adversity? You got to let a young quarterback play through some things. He goes out there, he has a bad practice on a Wednesday. You don't just go with the other guy on Thursday. You got to let him play through some things. And the team is looking at that position. Let's not kid ourselves. I was a head coach of the Buccaneers with Brad Johnson. We won a Super Bowl. A couple of years ago, we're playing a rookie, Bruce Gradkowski from Toledo. And the team knows that Bruce is not at the level yet of a Brad Johnson. So they're all studying and witnessing the development or lack of development, and it can really hurt the morale of a football team, right, Rich?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think you're not going to fool the players in the huddle. They know who can do it. They know who has the stripes. They know who has the experience. And, you talked a little bit earlier about Baker Mayfield, John. I think when he walks into the huddle, these players know they got a chance each and every week. I mean, that's a very comforting feeling to have as a football team. I think when you put your head down on your pillow on Saturday night as a head coach in the NFL, you sleep a lot better knowing that you got a chance with the quarterback on Sunday. Yeah. And when you're Kellen Moore and you're not quite sure, that's not a good situation to be in. My sense is that they've already seen what they had with the other two players last year. And you mentioned Rattler playing 6 games, Jake Haener playing a game last year. I think this is all about Tyler Shuck and finding out what this kid can do in the preseason. How ready is he? Can we start him week 1? And can we be patient with him? That's the other thing, John, as you know. These general managers have a way of creeping down the hallway and talking to the coach. The owner sticks his nose in there. The owner wants to see this guy. The owner wants to make a quarterback change. Are we going to be patient? We drafted this quarterback for a reason. There's going to be growing pains. Are we going to be mature enough as an organization? We're going to be patient enough to realize that we've got to stick this thing out. Too many teams pulled the trigger way too soon.
Okay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bringing back the creamsicle uniforms. I still love the Buccaneers. I can't help it. I spent 7 years there. But here's a team that has really dominated the NFC South. They've won 4 straight division titles. Head coach Todd Bowles and general manager Jason Light have done a terrific job. They both just got a contract extension, well-deserved. The Bucs' 4 straight division titles are bringing back predominantly the same roster. They have added some players on both sides of the ball. We'll get to that in just a second. But nobody in the NFL has had more starts from home drafted players than general manager Jason Light of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give the man credit. He's done a great job drafting players, and they've done a terrific job spending wisely in free agency. 3 straight division titles for Todd Bowles. He's done it with 3 different offensive coordinators. This year it'll be Josh Grizzard at the helm calling plays. That's a big reason why you get a contract extension. The Bucs went 4-2 in the division last year. They were swept by the Atlanta Falcons. Matter of fact, Atlanta shredded them in both games. This is a defensive head coach. We'll talk about their defense in a minute. They really get after the pocket. They blitz a lot. They're an aggressive team on both sides of the ball, fun to watch. They had a roller coaster season last year. They started off impressively. They pounded the Philadelphia Eagles at home. Then they went on the road and beat Detroit. They looked great. Then they had a rash of injuries. They lost 4 straight games. The Ravens, the Chiefs, the Falcons, the 49ers, 4 straight losses. But credit Todd Bowles for having a mental toughness. This team regrouped. They won 6 out of 7 games, and they captured their 4th straight title. Roller coaster season ends with a very difficult loss to the Washington Commanders. They got stuffed on 3rd down and 1, 4th down and 1, tight in Washington territory. And then they had a bad exchange on their minus 10-yard line. They couldn't hand the ball off, and Washington got an easy score after that turnover. So I know Tampa Bay's primed and ready. They have done a nice job adding players here in free agency. Keep an eye on Hassan Reddick. This guy had over 20 sacks in 2 seasons at Philly. I know he was awful quiet last year with the Jets after the contract holdout. They also brought in Riley Dixon, a really good punter, to help the Bucs. They struggled in net punt. They were last in the league a year ago. But keep an eye on new offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. They lost Liam Cohen. He took the head coaching job in Jacksonville. Grizzard has been Cohen's right-hand man. He's a young guy. The guy comes out of Yale. He's a lot smarter than me and Malisack. I know that. But they've also had a great draft, I think. They drafted Emeka Egbuka, great receiver out of Ohio State, man. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I think he's the all-time leading receiver yards-wise at OSU. Hell of a player. They also got 2 corners. I really like Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. 9 picks the last 2 seasons. He was hurt last year. I think that's why he slipped into the 2nd round. Then they get this Jacob Parrish guy. Not a big guy, but a hell of a playmaker who can play the nickel slot corner. The Bucs added 2 good corners and a hell of a wideout. And keep an eye on my sleeper, David Walker out of Central Arkansas. You know why I think he's going to be good? Because I saw Todd Bowles and Jason Light on draft day on one of those draft cam things, high five, and they were fired up to get this guy. He ain't the biggest guy, productive pass rusher. He's kind of like Elvis Doomerville, if you remember Doomerville. Not a real big guy, hard to block. And he comes, man, he brings it. They get Elijah Roberts out of SMU, Tez Johnson, little punt returner out of Oregon. He could make a difference on special teams. But they lost some players, but nobody that you're going to just have a jaw drop like, oh, we lost him. They lost a former 1st-round pick, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who played defensive end. Longtime defensive tackle William Golston is gone, and a couple backup offensive linemen. Perhaps the biggest loss is Liam Cohen, who came out of nowhere in his first year calling plays to get the Jacksonville Jaguar job. But those are the comings and goings in Tampa. I do really like their kicker, man. Chase McLaughlin. This guy's a freaking assassin. 30 out of 32 on field goals, 8 for 10 from long range, over 50. And think about the Bucs' last 6 games, will you? Think about this. They're going to have a hell of a football team. You'll see. But their last 6 games, they have 3 straight home games. Home against Arizona, home against New Orleans, and home against Atlanta. That's pretty damn good. Then they got a road game at Carolina, a road game at Miami, and they finish at home against Carolina. Now, I'm not one of these guys that goes on TV and goes, win, loss, win, loss, 12-4, next team. That's a very favorable schedule for a 4-time division champion and a badass head coach with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. I like the Bucs. Let's get into the offense. All right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is going to be led by Josh Grizzard, young coach. Came out of the Miami Dolphin pipeline with Mike McDaniel. He was a wide receiver coach. He comes over to Tampa last year. He's Liam Cohen's right-hand man. He was in charge of the third down package. He was Liam Cohen's eyes in the sky. He was up in the press box studying coverages. What are the blitzes? He communicated down to down with Liam Cohen. So I think this guy, even though he hasn't called plays, I know he's been preparing to call plays. Keep an eye on this guy, Grizzard. He's going to do a good job, I think, in his first year as the OC. I love watching Tampa Bay on offense. You know how you get all the films, they come in and you think, who do you want to watch first? Well, I love watching Detroit on offense, and I love watching Tampa, man. Not because of my loyalty, but because they got a balanced offense. They can knock your ass off running the ball now. You'll see. And they can throw it as good or better than anybody in football. And they have firepower coming out of the backfield with Bucky Irving. They got great receivers, a well-known tight end presence in Cade Otton. I don't think many fans know who he is, but the guy catches 60 passes, and they got a hell of an offensive line. But this is a versatile offense. They can come at you with 11 personnel. That's one back, one tight end, 3 wideouts. But when the wideouts got hurt last year, remember, Godwin got hurt, Evans got hurt, they kind of morphed into a 13 personnel outfit. 1 back, 3 tight ends, and 1 wideout. They can also play Bucky Irving and Rashad White together in a 2 halfback set. Very versatile, very explosive, and they got a balanced offense. Keep an eye on that this year. The one thing I think they need to improve on is their turnover ratio. For a division champion, being -5 in the turnover margin, that's not good enough. They got to take better care of the football and create more takeaways. But when you study Tampa's success on offense, you can see why Liam Cohen got a head coaching job. They were number 4 in the league, 29.5 points a game. They were number 3 in the league with 400 yards a game. 4th in the league in rushing, 150 yards a game. 3rd in passing, over 250 yards a game. Number 1 third down offense in football, 51% conversion rate. That's astonishing. And they were 67% touchdowns in the red zone. That's 4th in the league. So they're in top 5 in every major category. But what I want to do is, you see these eyeballs right here, Jake? I want to give credit where credit is due, and that's the offensive line. Nobody ever talks about the offensive line in fantasy football, but if I was a fantasy football owner, you know who I'd take with my first pick, Clay? I'd take Tristan Wirfs, their left tackle, number 78. He's the only guy I know of that's been all-pro first team at right tackle and left tackle. Plus, I saw him in the swimming pool jump out of the water and land on the freaking land. This guy's a bitch. This guy is a hell of a football player, arguably to some people, but not to me. He's the best left tackle in the league. And Luke Gedeke over here at right tackle, number 67, he's a hell of a player. An excellent football player. And the center, Graham Barton, okay, first-round pick last year out of Duke. This guy's going to be the best center in the history of this franchise. And they get solid guard play from Ben Bredesen and Cody Mock. This offensive line coach, Kevin Carberry, has done an excellent job with the Buccaneer offensive line, and all 5 starters returned. That's impressive. Do you know Tristan Wirfs, okay, started at right tackle for 3 years? Then he comes over to left tackle. He is a shutout artist. I mean, the lowest pressure rate, if you're into all these stats, comes off Tristan Wirfs. And nobody is asked to one-on-one pass protect more than Tristan Wirfs. He's the best. They got a great offensive line, 2nd in the NFL in least amount of pressure, and number 3 in the NFL, averaging 5.3 yards a carry. So they can run block, and they can pass block. They can switch stunts, pick up blitzes. They are really good. And when you combine that with Baker Mayfield's ability to get out of trouble, this is a pain-in-the-ass Buccaneer offense to stop. Let me tell you. Baker Mayfield, think about this. 8 different offensive coordinators in 8 years in the NFL. Cleveland, Carolina, LA. Then he's had 3 in 3 straight years in Tampa. He is unbelievable. I don't think the verbiage is going to change this year, but I do think there will be some evolving with Josh Grizzard's style and play calling. The Buccaneers don't want to just run the same plays with the new offensive coordinator. They got to keep evolving, stay ahead of these defensive coaches that are in these dark rooms studying them all off season. I guarantee you, Grizzard and Mayfield will have some new stuff. What I love about Mayfield, Pro Bowler under Canales, Pro Bowler under Liam Cohen, but I love his play style. Do you know Baker Mayfield rushed for 378 yards, over 6 yards a carry? This guy's a competing badass. Number 1 in the NFL, 69 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Now, he also leads the NFL with 26 interceptions, so we just can't chap our lips on anybody's butt. He got to take a little bit better care of the ball. I think he knows that. But this is the 3rd player ever in football, in the history of the league, to throw for over 70%, over 4,500 yards, and over 40 touchdowns. Joe Burrow did it, Drew Brees did it, and Baker Mayfield did it. That's how great he has played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Great quarterback, man. And Kyle Trask, an experienced backup. He's been here in Tampa for a while, but hasn't played much. Now, the running backs, this is an astonishing fact. In 2022 and 2023, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were last in rushing 2 years in a row. Bucky Irving comes in here, 4th round pick out of Oregon. Guess what? Tampa Bay's in the top 5. Bucky Irving, fantasy football owners, is a pick you got to take. 5'9", 194 pounds. This guy led the NFL 4.5 yards after contact. He led the NFL in making people miss. This guy's freaking elusive. He's a tough, complete badass. 9th in the NFL, almost 1,200 yards rushing. He caught 47 passes. This guy is a really good player, and his workload increased. The first 9 games, he only touched the ball 9.2 times a game. But in the last 8 games, including the playoffs, he's touching it almost 16 times. You know, us coaches can't be that stupid. You see this guy go off like that, give him the ball, give him the ball, give him the ball. That's what's going to happen with Irving. Hell of a player. Keep an eye on Bucky Irving. The complimentary back is good too, Rachaad White. He's one of 5 guys in the league to have over 600 yards rushing, over 50 catches, and more than 9 touchdowns. So they got Irving and Rachaad White with this offensive line. And if you try to stop all these receivers, split safety, double Evans, double this guy, these backs will kill you, man. It's a really impressive crowd. They also have a young guy named Sean Tucker, who had over 300 yards rushing and 6.2 yards a carry. So they got a really good running game. They can run inside zone plays, gap schemes, RPOs. They got all kind of running plays. And Baker Mayfield, he'll check to a run when it's a soft box. He'll check to a pass and rip you if you load the blocks. It is fun to watch football. I'm glad they're right down the street here at Raymond James Stadium. Now, the receivers, are led by Mike Evans. 11 1,000-yard seasons. That's what Jerry Rice did. That's the kind of rare air we're talking about. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Again, over 10 touchdowns. Watch out for Evans in critical red zone situations, especially at crunch time. They also have Chris Godwin. Remember, in week 7 last year, he had a serious injury. That's his 2nd serious injury in 4 years. He was leading the Bucs in receiving. Number 14, Godwin, he is something else after the catch. He's a slot receiver. He's a physical runner and receiver. They need to get him back. If he's not ready by week 1, that's where their first-round pick, Emeka Egbuka, comes in. I mean, Ohio State's had 5 first-round wideouts in the last 4 years. You remember Garrett Wilson? Yes? Yep. You remember Chris Olave? How about Marvin Harrison? Who was the other one? Does anybody know? How about Njigba Smith? So they've had a lot of receivers. Well, Egbuka is the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State, and he's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This guy's a hell of a football player, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And then ask yourself, who is Jalen McMillan? In the last 5 games, this young receiver, a rookie out of Washington a year ago, had 7 touchdown catches. He led the NFL in the last 5 games. So when you have Evans, Goodwin, You have McMillan, you got Ibuka. Who's your fifth receiver? Damn, Sterling Shepard has over 400 catches and 24 touchdowns, and they drafted Tez Johnson to possibly be their gadget man and punt returner. That is firepower. The running backs and receivers, and Cade Otton, their tight end, caught 60 passes and was second on the team with 600 yards. So they got guys that can wheel and deal all over the place. This is one heck of an offense. Okay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on defense are led by their head coach, Todd Bowles. He calls the defense. I love that about the Buccaneers. Their head coach calls it. Now, Lavonte David, Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea, they got some well-known players that are at the top of the food chain. But under Todd Bowles' direction since 2019, think about this. The Bucs have only allowed 93 yards a game rushing, only allowed 4.0 yards per carry. They have forced 68 fumbles, Clay. All right, that leads the league. They're second with 281 sacks, and they're fifth in the NFL in red zone defense. And if you saw them in the Super Bowl a few years ago against Kansas City, you see what Todd Bowles did to Pat Mahomes. Gave him problems. It's a very pressure-oriented defense. This is the number one blitzing team in the NFL by a wide margin. Since 2019, they blitz almost 40% of the time. That's why I wear Buccaneer gear and I watch the Bucs. They pressure you on offense and they pressure you big time on defense. They have had some injuries. Last year, they had them at all three levels. I'm like, damn, Elijah Cansey's out for 5 weeks. Damn, Antoine Winfield, our safety's out. Dang, we lost Servassier Dennis at linebacker. They had a lot of injuries, and their numbers were the worst they have been since 2019. 16th in scoring defense, 18th in total defense, 4th against the run, but 29th against the pass. And we all remember Atlanta and Kirk Cousins ripped them twice in 2 big losses. But this is a run-stuffing defense. In the last 7 games, just 54 yards a game. And when Bowles gets you in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 9, look out. A lot of blitzes. And some of these blitzes are what I call designer blitzes. Meaning you're watching film all week, all year, and then you get in a game, you're like, what the hell was that? He designed a blitz. Kapow! Just for you, Jake. All right? You'll see guys like Lavonte David. He'll have 5.5 sacks coming from his inside linebacker position. Then you'll see Antoine Winfield. He'll have 6 sacks like he did 2 years ago coming off the free safety. You'll even see Vita Vea. I don't know how much he weighs, but he's big. He'll be standing up like a linebacker and blitzing. They have something for you every week. It's fun to watch. And they have added players this year to help this defense on all 3 levels. They've drafted corners. They've helped themselves at linebacker in free agency, and they've drafted defensive linemen, and they've signed pass rushers. So they have helped themselves big time. Now, think of Todd Bowles, think of his veteran defense, and this pressure package against the divisional quarterbacks. New Orleans Saints, Tyler Shuck, he hasn't seen this, man. He's just a rookie, right? Bryce Young, he hasn't played a lot, just 33 career starts, and Mike Penix has only been out there for 3 starts. So it's this experience, it's this pressure against these young quarterbacks, I think, that makes Tampa Bay the clear favorite to win the South. Now, their defensive line, they're led by Vita Vea, number 50. When he's on the field, you can't run the ball. Forget about it. You should audible to a pass. That's how good he is. When he's off the field, taking a Gatorade break, run the ball. Because when he's off the field, you run the ball for 4.7 yards a carry. When he's on the field, good God, it's like 3.5 yards and a headache. So beware of Vita Vea as a run defender, and he's a lot better pass rusher than people think. He had 47 pressures last year. That's the most he's ever had. They also have Elijah Cansey, first-round pick a couple years ago out of Pitt, coming into his own. He missed the first 5 games, but number 94, okay, had 7.5 sacks. Kind of reminds me of my old 3 technique. Warren Sapp getting off on the guard. I mean, Gerald McCoy. This franchise has had that 3 technique for years and years. And I think Cansey could develop into that inside rushing force if he stays healthy. They also added Hassan Reddick to be the edge rusher. Remember, this cat has 51.5 sacks from 2020 to 2024. He really didn't do much last year with the Jets because he was holding out. I don't know what that was all about. But if they can get Reddick's speed on one side and Yaya Diaby, who had 5 sacks last year, power rusher, speed rusher, that's a nice 1-2 punch with Cansey and Vita Vea inside. They also have a lot of depth. I really like Logan Hall, number 90, the former 33rd pick in the draft. This guy can play a lot of positions, right end, left end, tackle. He can go everywhere. And they also had Chris Braswell, a second-round pick last year out of Alabama, number 43. Good player. They also have David Walker, their 4th-round pick. I can't wait to see this guy coming off the edge from Central Arkansas. So Reddick, Walker give him speed rushes. Logan Hall, Diaby give him power rushers. And Anthony Nelson, number 98 out of Iowa. Does anybody ever talk about him? All he does is make plays. They got a really good nucleus of players that give them some depth with Greg Gaines, C.J. Brewer. They have some guys now in this heat because it gets hot. That's why these creamsicle uniforms are going to feel nicey on them. You know what I mean? They breathe a little bit easier than the red and pewter and gray and all that shit. Anyways, the linebackers are led by Levante David. We had him in here in the offseason. This guy's the most overlooked, underrated player perhaps in NFL history. You talk about a guy that's 35 years old, 14th season. He's the current leading tackler in pro football with over 1,100. You know, Levante David and Julius Peppers, Jake, are the only guys in NFL history to have 30-plus sacks, 30-plus forced fumbles, and over 10 picks, and he's only been to 1 Pro Bowl. God, that ticks me off. Levante David, he is great. And I had a great one here in Derek Brooks, and to say this guy's as good or in that category, whew, that's got me feeling good again. They also have a young linebacker worth studying, Servassier Dennis. He came out of Pitt. He was a 5th-round pick. And I'm watching him last year early in the season against Detroit and some of these other teams. He's an athletic, good player. He got hurt, missed the rest of the season, and that injury really hurt the Buccaneers underneath pass defense. But I think if Servassier Dennis is healthy, he and Levante David give the Buccaneers 2 really good linebackers. And what I love about what they did is Jason Light went out and signed Anthony Walker from the Miami Dolphins. He brought in Deion Jones, who's played on every team in the league, 2 veteran linebackers to give them some depth. But it's the secondary. They were 29th in the league in pass defense. They got hurt with their underneath coverage, but it's their secondary, I think, that is going to be the most improved part of this team. I love Antoine Winfield. I don't like him, Jake. I love him. 2 years ago, they gave him $84 million. He had 6 sacks, 3 picks, 120 tackles. He was everywhere. But last year, Antoine Winfield wasn't himself. He was hurt. He missed 9 games. So they're getting perhaps the best safety in football back. They move Tyke Smith, who was their nickel last year. I think they're going to move him back to the other safety position. These 2 guys are damn good players. And then Zion McCollum, number 27. He had 17 passes broken up last year. Now, some of the Pro Football Focus people are going to say, well, he gave up a lot of yards. You know what I like about McCollum? He has a great freaking mental toughness. He could give a shit about the last play, next play, next play. He keeps coming. He keeps getting better. And he is a lot like his defensive backfield coach, Kevin Ross, Nick Rapone, 2 Temple guys that get in your head and they coach mental toughness. Jamal Dean has been a solid player at the other corner, but let's keep an eye now on these 2 rookies. This could be the tide that turns the Buccaneers into the NFC champions. Jacob Parrish, if this youngster out of Kansas State can do what he did at Kansas State in the slot playing nickel, whoo, that's big. And if Benjamin Morrison, who had 9 picks in 2 years at Notre Dame, and you watch him against Marvin Harris when they squared off against Ohio State, if you watch Benjamin Morrison, this guy's big. This guy can play press coverage. He's not afraid to tackle. He's got ball skills. This could be the most improved part of this defense. Excellent depth up in the front. Veteran linebacker and David, and an up-and-coming secondary with Todd Bowles at the helm. That's why I got the Buccaneers to win their 5th straight NFC South title, and I think they're going to the NFC Championship game. I'll talk about that later. All right, let's go to Rich Gannon and see what he says about Mayfield. I know he loves Baker Mayfield.
You look at Baker Mayfield coming into the league, not going to a great situation, going to the Cleveland Browns back in 2018. I did some of his games, John. I know you did as well. And I just remember visiting with him in those production meetings. I just felt like here was a guy that was maybe overly confident, maybe even a little bit arrogant, felt like he had all the answers, hadn't really done anything yet. And then he kind of gets that team turned around. His 3rd year there, they go on the road and beat the Steelers in a playoff game. And then the following year, he has a shoulder injury and they just cut him loose. And it was kind of a shock. And then he goes to Carolina. He doesn't get there until July. You've got a first-time head coach in Matt Rule. Things don't work out in Carolina. They kick him to the curb. He has to go out to see Sean McVay, one of your buddies, late in the season in December and play a couple games for the Rams.
And he's there for one day and he comes off the bench and beats my Raiders.
And then he goes to Tampa Bay and they tell him, hey, you're not even going to be the starter. You got to compete for the job. And I think what he's accomplished in his career, and here's a guy that's overcome a lot of adversity, didn't come easy to him early. I think he's grown and matured into a much different player. You and I have talked a lot about some of the qualities and the characteristics that you look for in a quarterback. And I think you start with physical and mental toughness. And Baker Mayfield's got a lot of grit, John. He's got a lot of toughness. I love watching this guy compete.
I do too. I'm right here in Tampa. He is a badass. I mean, he never gives up on a play. He can scramble and create with his arm. He can run for first downs. And the guy really, I think, permeates the entire locker room. I think the Buccaneers take after their quarterback. This is a good team, and I think the reason they're winning the NFC South the last couple of years is because of the quarterback. I mean, he can distribute the ball to Evans. They got Godwin. They've got 2 weapons coming out of the backfield. Now they just drafted a kid out of Ohio State in the 1st round, and I love their offensive line, Rich. From left tackle to right tackle, next to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think Tampa Bay's got the best offensive line in football.
Well, you got a great left tackle. You start there, right? That's where you spend the money. But John, you mentioned, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. He didn't have them for a good part of last season. There was a stretch there we didn't have either of them, and he still went out there and spun it. He threw for over 4,500 yards last year. He completed over 70% of his passes. He threw for 44 touchdowns. I mean, this guy, I always say, like when you talk about, what you're looking for in the quarterback, does he have the ability to put the team on his shoulders? And I think when you look at Baker Mayfield and what he's done the last couple of seasons, clearly he has that. And you talk about, his pocket presence. He's not the biggest guy. We know that. I think he's a tough sack. He doesn't go down easy. I think if you look at his lower body strength, this guy's got some power. He can scramble for a couple first downs. When you and I were together, you'd always encourage me, hey, if you can make a couple first downs each week with your legs, that's a big thing. But he keeps plays alive, the unscripted offense, his ability to create and manufacture offense. The other thing, John, you and I talk a lot about is his ability to handle a lot of volume. His ability to be with different play callers. That's never an easy thing. He's been through a couple of them now in Tampa Bay. And I think his ability to go out there and play with a great deal of consistency week in and week out, that's so important. We talk about when we evaluate that position, we can't have this chart where we're good one week, we're bad the next week, we throw for 3 touchdowns, we throw 3 picks. He's been pretty consistent when you look at his body of work here the last couple seasons.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the new offensive coordinator. I mean, Tampa Bay, they lose Canales after 1 year. He gets the Carolina job. Liam Coleman's there 1 year. He gets the Jacksonville head coaching job. Now they've got another coordinator. And I don't care what you say, that transition, there can be some static in the radio for a while. So I'm anxious to see how he translates once again to a new offensive play caller. What I love about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is they can play you with 11 personnel, 1 back, 3 receivers, or they can come right at you with 1 back and 3 tight ends. And that's what they did against the Chargers. I mean, they bring in Payne Durham at 1 tight end, Kate Otten at the other. Here comes O'Keefe, number 41. They like to make him a fullback in this 13 personnel. And they run this gap scheme. I call it 96 to the right, 97 to the left. The play is F counter with an easy release. What is an easy release? Well, the tight end acts like he's blocking Joey Bosa, but then he releases and blocks the strong safety. But that bluff, it sets up this trap block by the backside guard. So Bosa's playing off the tight end releases, boom, here comes the left guard Bredesen kicking out on 96 F counter easy. They get a double team between Gedeke and their right guard Mock, and they come off for the backside linebacker. Barton snatches the nose tackle, and you'll see O'Keefe following that guard right up inside for the inside linebacker. Bucky Irving starts away, so the flow starts one way, the action comes the other, and if you get him one-on-one with that free safety, whoo, look out. It's going to get exciting for Tampa fans. 96, F counter easy. It's a big play. It's a gap scheme that the Buccaneers can pound you with. They cut off the backside. It's a problem play.